Hello neighbors, it's Brad here from eTrailer, and today we are taking a look at installing the BMW Trailer Hitch on a 2025 Honda CR-V. And BMW is well known in the towing industry for fifth wheels, ball mounts, and really high quality products across the board, and this hitch is no different. It's a great fit on our CR-V, and let's take a closer look at it and see if it's going to be the right one for you. It looks like any other trailer hitch that you might expect, with a 2" by 2" receiver tube opening, which is great. It's kind of the standard size for a lot of accessories that you're going to be picking up, but you get a super clean look because this is a hidden cross tube, meaning the only thing that you're going to see once installed is going to be the receiver opening and a little bit of the safety chain. So you get a really clean OEM look with all the functionality. As far as accessories, 2" by 2" is what you're looking for. You're gonna have tons of options available, but everything's gonna stay in place with a 5/8 pin and clip. This is not included with the hitch, but many times when you pick up accessories, they'll have them included. Something I might recommend is a locking pin and clip. If you plan on leaving a bike rack on for the season or a cargo carrier on vacation, it's a good deterrent from anyone walking by. They can't just take out that pin and clip and that accessory with them. Now, I mentioned those safety chain loops. These are a nice plate style. They're tucked back. I think they're really clean. A lot of your other ones, you're gonna have kind of hoops here. This one, still super usable, but a little bit cleaner of a look. So when hooking up them safety chains, you can easily put on a standard S-hook. Clevis styles, no problem. The smaller one, you may have to put it at a slight angle, but minor in the grand scheme of things. And then a larger Clevis style, also able to do it. Kind of difficult, but still able to hook up. What makes the BMW, I think, a great choice is going to be the capacities that it offers. There's plenty of different brands out there, and many of them will have decent capacities. Some of them have lower ones. This one is rated pretty well. We have a gross trailer weight rating of 4,500 pounds, which is the weight of the trailer plus the accessories loaded onto it, and a tongue weight rating of 675 pounds. That's going to be especially useful for bike racks and cargo carriers because that's the downward pressure on the inside of the receiver tube opening and really accounts for your suspended accessories. With 675 pounds, that's a 4-bike rack loaded up with no issue. You could get a cargo carrier on here loaded up on vacation, probably no issue. And as far as towing, 4,500 pounds is a lot. And that's to say that the hitch is rated at that, but whether or not the vehicle is, that is up to the owner's manual. So take a look at the owner's manual, see what it's capable of towing, then compare that with the hitch and take the lower of those numbers so you're not overloading anything in the process. Now, some of those suspended accessories can stow in a vertical position depending on the one that you get. And you wanna make sure that it works on this vehicle. I don't really have any issues here because from the center of a hitch pin to the furthest point, it's actually comes shorter than the receiver tube opening. So really no issues there. Just keep in mind when they're folded up, you will probably have to fold those down to open up your rear hatch, and it may block your license plate as well as your backup camera. Now, another important measurement is going to be ground clearance because that's going to help you determine whether you need a rise or a drop for a ball mount. And our ground clearance from the top of the receiver tube opening to the ground comes in at 14 inches. And as I mentioned, to determine that rise or drop necessary, you're going to take that measurement and compare it with the measurement of your trailer, get it on perfectly level ground, measure from the ground to the top of the coupler, take that measurement, and depending on where it comes, that's going to determine that rise or drop necessary. If I was to guess, a 14-inch normal, I would say, would be a couple inch rise, but really depends on the trailer that you have. Something that you could do is get an adjustable ball mount, and that way if you're towing a variety of different trailers, you can adjust for that to get everything nice and level. Chances are you're on this page because you want to see what it takes to get this installed. And overall, this isn't that difficult of a hitch relative to some of the other ones out there on the market, but it is going to require a few things, including dropping the mufflers off of the isolator to lower that down to gain access to the frame rail. There's also a plastic panel that we need to remove and do a little bit of trimming along with the fascia just to account for that receiver to be able to fit in there. But beyond that, we're just going to be fish wiring some hardware up to both sides of the hitch and then bolting the hitch together with the center section. So overall, none of it's terribly hard, but I would give yourself maybe an hour, maybe a little bit more if you've never really done a hitch install. But overall, I think it's something you don't have to be super mechanically inclined to get this knocked out, and I believe that you can do it. But I also understand if you don't want to tackle this on your own and you just want that hitch on there so you can be out there on adventures, maybe you don't have the time, place, tools, or even the want to do this yourself. If that's the case, no problem. You can find someone close to you to get it installed by using our dealer locator. You'll simply put in your zip code, you'll find a list of shops close to you that can knock out the hitch, as well as maybe some trailer wiring at the same time or any other accessories. For you DIYers that are going to be knocking this out on your own, I'm going to walk you through step by step. So let's get your hitch installed. The first step to begin our installation is going to be lowering our mufflers down from the isolators, and that's going to give us a lot more room to be able to feed up our hardware into the frame rail to be able to bolt up our hitch. And the isolators are going to be located at the end of the muffler. There's going to be one on each side. I have this one removed already, but we have one identical over here. And something I do recommend is a lot of times these will be pretty stiff and hard to pop off, mostly because it keeps your muffler in place while going down the road. So to help it along, if you have some soapy water, I'd recommend spraying it on there. It'll help lubricate it and make it a little bit easier to pop off. Now, as far as tools, I'm using a pry bar, but if you have a long flathead screwdriver, that should work as well. And this welded on bracket becomes a good leverage point to be able to pry this back. So your isolators are pretty strong. Don't be afraid that you're going to rip it or anything along those lines, but just kind of put pressure along the two spots that it's hanging on there. And once you get one, you can kind of work on the other. And just take your time here. And once you get both muffler isolators popped off, it may drop down just a little bit, but there's gonna be one more isolator that we're gonna remove to really get this thing lowered down. Now, in order to do that, we wanna make sure we're supporting the exhaust, because once we pop this isolator down, the next point is pretty far up the vehicle. That can put a lot of pressure on the exhaust system, so we don't wanna damage anything. So I'll be using a cam buckle strap since we're up on a lift, but if you have a box or a block of wood to support this, that's going to be really advantageous to use, again, just to prevent any damage from occurring. So I'm going to create a cradle with our cam buckle strap. You can do the same thing. And then we'll attack this isolator. Now you can pop it off. The same goes for the rear isolators. You can pop it off on either of the hangers, whatever easier for you to get off. I'll probably take this one, so I'll spray this. Grab my pry bar. And on this one, you can go through the middle and just kind of work at this until you get it to pop off. Another way, again, going through the middle, is if you can feed your pry bar or screwdriver through here and use the hanger as leverage, you can just pull this down. My pry bar is a little long here, but with a little bit of patience, we should be able to get this to pop off. But again, if that one's giving you trouble, this bottom one might work out a little bit better for us. Yeah, I would go with the bottom one. It does seem to be a little bit easier. Again, you can use that center section for leverage. There we go. And as you can see, it drops down pretty quickly. So if you're under here, make sure you're not going to bonk your head. And the great part about a cam buckle strap is it's supported here, but I can slowly lower this down to make sure that it's still supported, yet I can get more access to put our hardware up. The next thing we need to do is get this underbody panel taken down, and it's just a series of plastic push pins. So a trim panel tool works really well on these. If you don't have one of these, you can use a flathead screwdriver. Just wedge it in between the outer ring and that center section. Once you get it popped like that, you can pull on that center section. Should be able to get the whole thing to come out. If not, if it separates, just make sure you get both pieces. So as I go across, there's one here, there's one in the center, and then one more up here. There's also going to be some 10mm nuts that we're going to remove. So those are going to be on the back side, but let's get all of our plastic push pins taken out first. Just those 10mm nuts on the stud. So we'll get those taken down on both sides. With those removed, we'll pull down our underbody panel. It does slide over that tow hook at the back, and we're gonna set this aside for now. Now to get our hardware in, it's actually a pretty easy process. It may be unique to you if you've never used a fish wire technique, but this is gonna allow us to drop in our hardware so we can bolt up our hitch. So on our frame rail, we're gonna find that there's 4 holes. We're gonna be passing our hardware into the 2 smaller ones. And we'll be using this large access hole to feed the hardware in. So we'll start with the forwardmost hole here. We'll grab our fish wire with the coiled end and feed that up and back towards the access hole. Once you have that coiled section pulled through the access, you're gonna grab your spacer block and you can just feed that up into the frame rail. You'll then take your carriage bolt and thread this on to the fish wire. From here, we just pull this and we can get this to drop down into place. Now, they give us enough pull wires to leave these in place, and that's what we're gonna do, because as we raise the hitch up later, we can slide these through the holes and slide the hitch up, and that way if we bump those, they're not gonna be in the frame rail, it'll keep it in place. So we're gonna just repeat the same process for the rear hole that we have here, and then also the other side. Now the cool part about this hitch is it is 3 pieces. So we have a wing for each side, and then the center section will bolt up. So it really makes it a one-person job. A lot of times with the heavy hitch, trying to get both sides up can be tricky. Main thing we want to focus on is getting the right side. Our driver's side, this should curve inward. Our hitch is going to rest in here, and have 2 serrated flange nuts ready to go, because we'll take our pull wires, feed these through the corresponding holes. It's really nice that BMW gives you pull wires that are extremely long too. You don't run the risk of them popping out as you do this, and you can guide it in pretty easily. So as we pull this up, something that we are going to run into is going to be that we need to move our fascia a little bit. So we can just slide that up. And everything should align pretty good here. So if you need to move it around up there, don't be surprised. From here, I'm going to pull the wing against the hardware, and that's going to kind of keep that in place. So as I tighten this, it shouldn't push up into the frame rail. And really all you need is just a few threads on each of them to get it started. So we'll get this side started, and then we're just going to repeat on the passenger side, doing the exact same thing. And we're going to get ready to put our center section up, and being that it locks into those outer wings, it's a little bit difficult. So what I recommend doing is making sure that your hardware is very loose. You want it to have a few threads, but really that's all you want. And push these out as wide as possible, because as we slide it in, we're going to need all of that to be able to get it in place before dropping those wings in. And potentially you might want an extra set of hands, because we're going to be pulling on the fascia and trying to guide it in there. It can be a little bit difficult. So I got Aiden to help me here. So as we raise it up, again, just pull back the fascia, and we'll have to get it over those metal tabs too. So it is tricky and it is tight, but once it's raised up, guide that center beam to where those wings are, and then slide that over it, and it should help support it. Now, once it's at that point, you're going to want to grab your carriage bolt, and we're going to feed that in from the inside towards the out, and we're going to feed on one of the serrated flange nut, and that's going to hold it in place, allowing us to get the remaining hardware. So there's a total of 3 sets of hardware. So we got a bolt and serrated flange nut for all 3 here, and we're going to repeat that on the other side. And it is pretty tight here as far as space. All of the hardware started, you may notice that it's kind of resting on the bottom of the fascia, or it's sitting crooked, and that's totally normal, because we do need to kind of adjust some of the hardware. So what I like to do is kind of hold this up in place, and as we start to snug everything down, just do it by hand, and it's going to slowly bring it to where it needs to be for the finished product. But I like to do this before snugging things down. That way we're not over tightening to one side or the other. And when snugging this down, I pushed up on here because the bottom part of that bracket can rest on the fascia. I want to make sure that we don't have that. I'm gonna go through with a 3/4 inch socket and just snug everything down. We're gonna come back with a torque wrench, so you don't need to get too crazy here. We just wanna get everything nice and tight. It's a little, as you probably know with your hands, it was tricky to get to some of these. So even with power tools, it's gonna be a little tricky for me. But we'll go through all of these and get them snug down. So now we're going to go through with our torque wrench and tighten everything down properly. Torque settings are found in the instruction manual. It'll be the same socket, and you can get away with a 3/8 drive torque wrench. 1/2 inch might be a little bit easier just to get leverage, but to get to these top ones, it's a little bit tricky. You can get to them with the socket. Now, if you need a torque wrench, we have them here at eTrailer, but really all you need to do is torque down the bolts and you'll be done with it. But it's gonna be an important step to really make sure that long-term everything's gonna stay tight so you can tow, put your accessories in, but it's also not too tight, causing any hardware issues. If you need to get this from an auto parts store and rent it for free just to knock it out, that's a great option. So I'll just go through all of our hardware and get these torqued down properly. So with all the hardware torqued down, we need to get our mufflers put back in the isolators, and then with our trimmed underbody panel, everything should slide up pretty easily. And if you do run into any issues as far as clearance, you can always cut off a little bit more, but you should be all right. But beyond that, all that's left to do once you get everything put back together is load up your accessories, put in your pin and clip, and you're ready to hit the road. Hopefully this video was helpful in getting your BMW trailer hitch installed on your 2025 Honda CR-V. Now, throughout the video, if there's anything that I might have missed, maybe something could have been better, or maybe it was even good, let me know in the comments. That really helps us dial in our videos to make them as best as possible for future neighbors like you that are going to be tackling this install on their own. Either way, thanks for joining us for this installation.